Like many of you, I have been glued to the Johnny Depp trial. I mean, it's such an interesting case, not for only its legal analysis, it's just full out funny at times. There are so many ridiculous moments. I really encourage you to watch if you have not tuned in. It's fascinating. So many aspects of it, the array of eccentric witnesses that are called to the stand, as well as the ridiculous questions asked by Amber Heard's legal team. So much richness in this case. I thoroughly think you will enjoy it, even if you can't tune into all of it, which is why I'm trying to break down the important takeaways so that you don't have to sit through hours and hours and hours of testimony. And it's also nice to see that because there's so many ridiculous moments, you see Johnny Depp even chuckle a few times at the responses and the questions asked at the responses of witnesses and the questions asked by the defense team. So it's nice to see him finding moments of lightness and levity, even though he's fighting for his livelihood, his reputation. So if you are curious, I really recommend you tune in. This is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss a wide range of legal topics, whether that's dealing with your small business or our civil liberties, such as this case, and dealing with the First Amendment rights, or if you are interested in celebrity shenanigans when they come up against a legal quandary, we discuss it here. So if you like that sort of things, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share with anyone else you think will find value. So just so you know, some preliminary information about this case. This case is brought in Fairfax County, Virginia, as opposed to California, where both of the celebrities live. Both of the celebrities live in California. This case was not brought in California for two reasons. Number one, because this case is based on an op-ed article that is penned by Amber Heard, Johnny Depp's ex-wife, in which she implicates him as being physically abusive ex-spouse. And so because the article is from the Washington Post, and the home of the Washington Post is in Fairfax County, Virginia, that is the home where the harm occurred, in which case Johnny Depp brought the lawsuit there. Also, Virginia has better, more preferable anti-SLAPP statute as opposed to California, which First Amendment trumps any defamation claim. So a defamation claim will almost be stricken down immediately in favor of First Amendment rights. So Virginia is a better option to bring this case. Again, it's for $50 million. Johnny Depp is suing his ex-wife for $50 million, and she's countersuing for $100 million. Good luck getting that. So the suit is brought as a result of Amber Heard penning or writing this op-ed piece in the Washington Post stating that she was a victim of domestic violence. The article doesn't mention the actor by name specifically, but his lawyers, Johnny Depp's lawyers, say the article contains defamation by implication because it clearly refers to allegations of domestic abuse made by Heard when she filed for a divorce in 2016. These statements derail Johnny Depp's career, which is why he is bringing this lawsuit in order to clear his name and denies any and all allegations of domestic, physical, or sexual abuse. So essentially, the point of this trial is to win over the public, to show that he is not a violent person. He has no propensity toward violence. Admittedly, he's not perfect. He is very transparent about relaying that he suffers with addiction, but that does not equate to him being a violent person, as claimed by Amber. And thus, he does not deserve the accusations of being violent toward any woman, nor kicked out of Hollywood altogether as a result of this op-ed article. So, long and short of it is that he's suing to clear his name. So what have we seen so far? We see evidence of nonviolence essentially on the part of Johnny. Johnny's coping style, his coping method is to retreat. Because of his abusive childhood, Johnny developed avoidance of conflict to cope in a traumatic situation. And he carried this coping method into adulthood. We see this confirmed by several witnesses, including the testimony of his sister and Johnny, in saying Johnny would say that he would walk away, lock himself in another room, another bathroom, or his sister sister in terms of travel arrangement, who ostensibly acted as his agent or his manager, would always book an additional room for him to retreat to whenever an argument erupted. So we have solid testimony from her, a witness, saying he always avoided it, and I made arrangements for him to avoid conflict. So historically, throughout his life, this was the way that he avoided conflict, so as not to be a part of this. Amber saw this as a sign of weakness, and so Amber would have an explosive reaction when he was trying to avoid aggression and violence. Johnny also admittedly coped by self-medicating with substance abuse and with drinking excessively. But these, even though under the influence of these substances, he was never belligerent. Again, he would retreat. An interesting revelation was that John offered to repair the reputational damage of Amber's op-ed by offering to go public and having them make a shared statement retracting the allegations of domestic violence. This was an offering. This was essentially an olive branch that even though she tried to destroy him, he was still willing to support her publicly in retracting the statement. This shows his compassion, his kindness, even though she went on a unilateral campaign to destroy him. Furthermore, this is also a full circle moment for him. I wasn't even sure if he was aware of it, of Johnny toward healing, where he usually retreats and avoids confrontation, but he was willing to confront the public and clear this up. Of course, she refused, which is why we're here. We also see Amber interpreting Johnny trying to defend himself, whether that's physically or retreating, his avoidance of her as an abandonment. And so she had a visceral and violent response of it. She wanted to be the victim. And so she went on this victim campaign, and that justified her reaction because she has somehow registered him retreating as abandonment and an attack on her, which is why she justified herself as being the victim and reacting disproportionately. So Johnny also tried to defend himself by asking for a divorce. Amber, of course, felt slighted by this because she, again, always sees herself as a victim. So in vindictive fashion, she goes on a crusade to destroy Johnny's reputation vis-a-vis the op-ed article. Now, defense wanted to point out Johnny's expressive language, his swearing, his expletive in the audio recording. Of course, he was not proud of the way he spoke to Amber, as you could see in the anguish in his face when the audio tapes were playing. But he attributes that to expression, but not violence. Swearing aggressive language is consistent with the volatility of the relationship, but not abuse. Because in the audio tapes, you hear no indication of physical impact or hitting or violence. We also see in the audio tape Johnny make the powerful admission that he is a victim of domestic violence. And in that same audio, in the conversation with Amber, she affirmed with a tone of sarcasm and flippancy that, yeah, you're a victim of domestic violence. But her in saying that, it's such a tone. It shows us and intimates that a man's admission of domestic violence is less believable than a woman's admission. So even if he's a victim, the public is not going to believe it. And she shows in that statement that she's capable of manipulation to keep him compliant to her objectives and not asserting his own voice. She knew he would never go public in terms of admitting that he is a victim because it wouldn't be believable. Also, defense wanted to harp on the comment of hit the wall and act like this statement meant it was a violent comment, but it's a phrase used to describe a point in a woman's life, the wall being that point where a woman is no longer sexually desirable to men. Her good looks, her shapely figure have all faded, and with it, the power that she commands, the money, the attention, the expensive dates from men has ceased. Hitting the wall is terrifying for women, which is why Johnny mentions it in reference to Amber, who works in Hollywood. I mean, the beacon of vanity and youth. So Hollywood, a world where beauty is a commodity. Therefore, the loss of beauty, the loss of Amber's beauty and desirability, that diminishing because of aging, correlates with the loss of her value as a woman working in Hollywood. It was not a violent statement. It did not intimate that he intended to hit the wall or throw her against the wall, even though defense tried to make it seem that way. It had nothing to do with that. It's just a term to describe women who reach a point in which they're no longer desirable. Simple as that. Defense also wanted to bring up the articles about Johnny, portraying him as hostile toward the media, but also a further point that he has a substance abuse problem, that he's fading, that he's a washed up actor, he's fading in Hollywood, and because of that he's angry and volatile. So by quoting these articles about Johnny, the defense tried to make it seem like Johnny was washed up and no longer part of Hollywood, not as a result of the op-ed, but because of his own transgressions. However, Johnny says, after working in Hollywood for 30 years, of course there are going to be negative things written about me. Of course. Yeah, there's nothing, I didn't hide my drug addiction, but that did not cause me to be kicked out of Hollywood. This article, the op-ed article, is the reason why I've been kicked out of Hollywood. Because let's just be frank, he didn't say this, but let's just be frank, who doesn't have a substance abuse and drinking problem in Hollywood? In the world, for that matter. Many people suffer with these diseases, but that doesn't make them bad people, doesn't make them violent people. Finally, we see the infamous deposition of the police officers. I'm going to summarize what they say because it's 4 officers and it's hours and hours of testimony. These were the officers that were called to the scene the night of Amber's friend making the 911 call, that bogus call that I inserted in my previous video. So the call was dispatched as a domestic violence to the officers. The officers came to the home, the penthouse in question, and questioned the parties. And they did their protective sweep. Both sets of officers who arrived separately did their protective sweep of the premises, and there was no evidence of domestic violence or harm to anyone. So they specified the protective sweep was described as making a walkthrough through the property with their partner to make sure that their perpetrator wasn't hiding or evading detection. And then once the police left, they would come out and continue to harm the victim. So we also learned that the woman officer interviewed Amber separately by pulling her aside along with the other woman to see if she would feel more comfortable sharing in front of a woman rather than the male police officer. But Amber did not cooperate. There was no urgency to report anything, and mum's the word, according to the officer's testimony. So the officers, because there was no sense of violence or sense of danger, they closed up the call as merely a verbal dispute, as Amber affirmed, saying she was just arguing with her husband. There was no evidence of physical altercation, property wasn't damaged, she refused medical treatment, there were no injuries, no other witnesses, and the witnesses there were uncooperative. They did not observe Amber being afraid. She was just uncooperative, but not afraid. One officer testified that she was crying profusely but did not appear to be hurt. And then he even went on to say that just because a woman is crying doesn't mean a crime has occurred or that she's hurt. They also interviewed the next door neighbor, who was also vague and uncooperative, was not very helpful. So to conclude, both sets of officers who arrived at the scene separately did their own independent, thorough investigation where there was no signs of domestic violence or danger, despite the call from the friend. Finally, the officers left a business card as part of LAPD policy to issue business card and proof of presence. And if she felt comfortable or compelled to speak to them at a later date, she had the opportunity to reach out to them, in which case she did not. I must say, these were wonderful and well-trained police officers. I was impressed at how thorough they handled this domestic violence dispute and how well they handled themselves on the witness stand. It was really, really refreshing to see. And finally, we meet the wonderful Ben King, Depp's very, very British house manager and personal assistant in Australia, who portrayed a composed and informed he was so informative and well-spoken. So Ben King testified about finding the actor's severed finger inside the home after Amber allegedly threw a vodka bottle at Johnny Depp. So they tried to trip him up. They tried to ask him bizarre questions. But again, this is a man well trained in the British education system. He's trained for his discretion. I mean, he deals with high net worth clients, and so he operates under the understanding of trust and discretion. That's how he describes himself, and I could see that. So Depp and Heard in Australia, they rented this home of the MotoGP world champion Mick Doonan in 2015 while the actor was filming the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. So King claimed that he arrived at the home on the afternoon of March 8, 2015, and he heard hysterical sobbing from Amber. That was when he witnessed Depp's personal doctor, Dr. Kipper, rummaging around looking for Johnny Depp's fingertip. He mentioned, and these were his quotes, that they were keen to get to the hospital as quickly as possible to reattach it. King said he eventually discovered the fingertip directly below the bar, where he noticed a paper towel that was soaked or had a lot of blood in it on the floor. So King then detailed that the couple had left the house in total and complete disarray, damage up to $50,000, significant damage following their explosive fight. So defense was keen to harp on the damage assessment to try to portray Depp as being violent and aggressive and the person that caused the damage. But remember Johnny Depp's testimony that he was forced to hide from Heard in the home to escape her violent tirades. Again, coping method is to retreat, not to attack. So the house that they rented in Australia was so large that he went from room to room in order to avoid the conflict. He locked himself, he's quoted in saying, in at least 9 bedrooms and bathrooms that day as she was banging and screaming from door to door to door to door, wanting to have a physical altercation. Again, seeing his retreating as an attack on her or him abandoning her. Furthermore, King testified to seeing a waxy substance or lipstick that was used to write on the mirrors. So this shows that Amber was responsible for destroying the property as well, because the lipstick was found from room to room. Finally, after figuring out the property damage, Ben offered to travel back to the United States with Amber. And when they had a quiet moment alone on the plane, he asked her, "So what happened?" in reference to the damage to the home. To which she responded, "Have you ever been so angry you just lost it?" To which he responded, "No, I have not." And she appeared incredulous that this was his response. So she asked again, "Not with the person, unless you count when I was 14 years old and I was unable to go out and I hit the light switch." King described her as having a look of disbelief that he would not react in the way that she reacted. So this revelation was important because it shows that she was the one that caused the damage to the property. She was the aggressor throughout it. She was the one who essentially lost it. But he affirmed, saying, "No, adults essentially do not act like that. I had this reaction when I was 14 years old. I haven't had it since." So he had so many classic one-liners. He was a very interesting and eccentric witness. Again, if you could tune into his testimony, very interesting. And he even went on to say that at one point he saw Amber's tantrum as a spoiled teenage child. Yeah. Finally, he admits once they landed in the United States, remember this is a long flight from Australia to the United States, he saw uniform scratches on her forearm that were not there before, evenly spaced. So it looked like he noticed that Amber deliberately scratched herself or made marks on her skin to make it seem like someone else, that Johnny Depp, did that. Despite his composure and discretion, we see defense trying to sensationalize the property damage to intimate that Johnny Depp was the one responsible. But he made the powerful admission that she caused the damage when she asked that question as to, have you ever just lost it? So essentially, she was the one likely to have destroyed the property. And next we meet the illustrious, wonderful forensic psychologist, Dr. Shannon Curry, who was hired by Depp's legal team to provide forensic psychological diagnosis of Amber Heard. And she said she reached her diagnosis during 12 hours of interviewing Amber, as well as from reviewing her mental health records. So she testified that Amber Heard suffered from borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. The two personality disorders are similar according to Dr. Curry, as well as according to the DSM-5. Borderline personality is a disease of instability driven by the underlying fear of abandonment. She said people with the disorder will make a desperate attempt to prevent that person from abandoning her. Curry also testified that Heard does not suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder based on or from her relationship with Johnny Depp, as Heard has claimed. So evidence introduced early in the trial, including audio tips of her begging Depp not to leave and to stay with her after he indicated a desire to break up or separate, shows the conclusion of the fear of abandonment. She also said that borderline personality disorder seems to be a predictive factor for women who implement violence against their partner. So it seems to be a predictive factor for women who are violent toward their spouses. Depp's team hopes that Curry's testimony bolsters the contention that Amber was the aggressor in the couple's troubled relationship. Johnny, who just concluded his 4 days on the witness stand, testified about Heard's need for conflict and her tendency to hound and pursue him during arguments. Also evidence from all of the audio. There's so much audio throughout their relationships which shows the outbursts of Amber and Johnny retreating. When in the audio, you hear when he tries to walk away and disengage, and she is just provoked from this. What's important about her testimony, Dr. Curry's testimony, that is that her job is not to provide a diagnosis through treatment, but to provide a professional opinion to the court, an assessment essentially. So Amber Heard was not under her care. She was not under her watchful eye. She made an initial baseline assessment to provide to the court. Treatment is separate. It's ongoing as opposed to an assessment that is made in a short period of time. So that distinction is clear. We also see the defense to try to act like Dr. Curry had a non-professional agenda by implying that Dr. Curry came to dinner went to dinner at Johnny Depp's house for a personal reason rather than for a professional reason. Dr. Curry made sure to correct the defense by asserting several times that she was there solely in a professional capacity in order to be interviewed by Johnny Depp's legal team, that there was nothing untoward and unusual about her being there, that she was interviewed for several hours over dinner where drinks were served. But interviews happen over drinks and dinner or lunch all the time. So for defense to make it seem like it was inappropriate or untoward was just bizarre. And she mentions that although it's not her typical practice to meet a client at their home, she agreed to conduct the interview at Johnny Depp's home to ensure discretion. And that's where we are. There's also some additional witness testimony that I want to include in my next video and inform you how that shapes the trial as we continue going on. But that's where we are now. And as you could see, the testimonies and the information provided are so rich and dense, I couldn't possibly do it in one video. Again, if you like the video, let me know. Put your comments in it. How do you think Johnny Depp's team is doing? How do you think Amber Heard's doing? Do you think their questions are ridiculous? I'll just say it right now. I really do. Some of them wildly inappropriate. especially when they interviewed the doorman at Johnny Depp's penthouse. I will discuss that in tomorrow's video, but for right now, we will leave it at that. Let me know what you think. All comments are welcome, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.